Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a reading vlog where I read some books that I have been highly anticipating. I'm in shock. I missed this feeling. This thing that just happened has happened to me one time before in a book, and there's no better feeling. Oh my god, I'm literally gonna cry. I have some books on my TBR that I think could potentially be 5-star reads that I have seen people really rave about, and they have very high ratings on Goodreads. So I want to read them myself and see if I could potentially love them just as much as everyone else seems to do. I don't know exactly what books I'm going to read in this book, only the first one, which actually after I finish talking here it will pan over to me explaining that book and reading it, because I have already started it, and it is The Road to Tender Hearts. Past me will come in and explain what the book is about, but I'm very excited to see if I could get potentially a 5-star read, or even just like 4.5, something like that, because I feel like I'm looking for like specific books after my reading taste has really developed in the past like 6 months or so into a lot of literary fiction. So I'm hoping that one of these 3 books or more books, I don't know how many I can read before I have to upload this video, so it depends, maybe it could be more, who knows, but I have high hopes. Like, I really hope that these books are going to be everything and more. Who knows, maybe we could have 3 5-star reads. That would be crazy. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. I've only had 1 5-star read this year so far. I'm gonna sign off and then it'll go to past me, who's talking about The Road to Tender Hearts. So I hope you enjoy the video. Currently I am reading The Road to Tender Hearts, which is one of the books that I picked using the wheel, and I started this book last night and I am now 34% through it, so I thought it was time to like talk about it and update. In this book we're following like multiple characters, but like the main character is PJ, who is a 63-year-old man. He's actually an alcoholic, but he is sober right now, has been for the last month. Because of some crazy circumstances, he becomes the caretaker of 2 children who are, I think they're like 9 and 11 years old, a little boy and a girl. So he takes custody of these children, who are actually his like estranged brother's grandchildren that he didn't know about because he hadn't talked to his brother for the last 40 years, even though they live in the same small town of like 800 citizens. And in the beginning of this book we also see PJ reading the newspaper, where he sees an obituary for this man he used to know back when he was like 18 years old, and he was the husband of PJ's like first love, who married this man while he was at war in Vietnam. So he sees this obituary, so now he's like, my first love is single again for the first time in over 40 years. It's time to shoot my shot. So he decides to go on a cross-country road trip to go from Massachusetts to Arizona, where she is, and he's bringing the 2 children. He's also bringing his new best friend, who is a cat, and he's also bringing his 26-year-old daughter, who he also has like a strange relationship with, because again he's been an alcoholic. They don't have the best relationship. But the 5 of them are all going on a cross-country road trip in a car. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. It's like in different parts. So part 2 now has started. I think I've read like 2 chapters in that part of them actually going on the road trip. Oh, and another thing that's like important, I guess, about PJ is that like 10 years ago, PJ won the lottery and he won $1.5 million. And so he's kind of rich. Which also helps for the children, because he's buying them like iPads and a trampoline and a PlayStation, and they're like, are you rich? And they're like, yeah. Very funny, very like charismatic guy. And this book reminds me so much of Frederick Bachman. I love Frederick Bachman's writing more than like the writing in this. It's not as poetic or like beautifully written. It's like the different point of views and like the different characters that changes around, and because it's a 3rd-person point of view, so even in the same chapter it'll say something from different people's like thoughts. Sophie, the daughter, thought this and this and this, and then PJ thought this and this and this in the same chapter, and I really like that. And the book also reminds me of a book that I actually just read in March, which was A Man Called Ove by Frederick Bachman, because it's a 59-year-old man who befriends a cat, and that's the same here, and then becomes like friends with different people and like his life story kind of, and it's giving the same vibes here. So I'm really enjoying this book so far. I am having a phenomenal time. I couldn't put it down last night. It was like one more chapter and then I'm gonna go to bed. And I've been reading a little bit today, and I just got back from hanging out with my friend. We went to the zoo, and now I'm just home, and it's like 4:30 p.m. and I have the rest of the night. I have no plans. So I'm very excited to just be like binging this book. It's a little less than 400 pages, I believe, but I'm going to start reading now, and then we'll just see. Hello, it's the next day and I'm almost 70% through The Road to Tender Hearts, so I just wanted to give a little bit of an update before I finish it. They're currently on the road trip. One part of the book, or like a big plot, I guess, whatever, is that one of the children, Luna, the girl, she's convinced that her dad who died is not her biological father. So on this road trip, they're also going to like find her real father, who's actually like an actor or something like that. Like he's famous. And I've almost gotten to that part. Like it's tomorrow in the book and it's kind of divided. Like I said, the first part and now the second part, it's like in days, if that makes sense. And now we've gotten to the day before. Like it's the evening, they just went to bed, and in the morning they're going to meet that actor. And I'm so nervous for Luna because she's so convinced about it, and she's so happy and like, oh, I'll go live in this like mansion with his wife and all the kids and it'll be amazing, and hopefully he'll take her little brother Ollie as well. But I'm scared for her feelings, and it's not gonna go how she wants it to go, because obviously I just from like having 30% left, and just for the book in general, I assume that PJ is going to continue having custody over them. And then there's the whole Michelle of it all, which I don't know if I said her name when I was explaining about it, but the woman he's trying to make fall in love with him, that he liked back when he was 18 years old. If you read A Man Called Ove, I see the similarities, but he's definitely the opposite of Ove, because Ove is a depressed man who wants to unalive himself, whereas PJ is very much the opposite. He is a like really weird, in a way, funny, goofy man who's also very empathetic. He doesn't like to read bad news, and he doesn't have a phone, he doesn't have a computer or Wi-Fi in general, because the others don't trust him with electronics. They think that he will, like, he's too gullible and he'll get scammed, or he'll send money to people that he shouldn't be sending money to. It's definitely a very entertaining story, and I could see it as a movie as well, like these 5 characters and this going on this road trip and the different things that they're seeing and experience. Like they went to an alpaca farm, and then they went to like a museum, and all the characters are just like so fundamentally different, and they each bring something unique and fun to the story, which I really enjoy. And again, I really like the writing in the way that you get all people's point of views, if that makes sense. It's, you know, a narrator that's not really in their heads, but a narrator that knows more. It's not a narrator where you're limited to what the characters know. You kind of know more. I hope that explanation made sense. I have no clue, but I will probably not update you guys until I've finished the book again, and then we'll move on to another book. Hey guys, it's been a few days and I haven't actually updated since I finished The Road to Tender Hearts, but I did finish it a few days ago. So let's talk about it. I ended up rating this book 3.5 stars. I had really high expectations. Obviously, that's what this video is about, reading books with high expectations too. While I did really enjoy it and I didn't really have anything negative to say as I was talking throughout this video, and I don't necessarily still have anything negative to say, I think it's just I didn't connect to the characters, and I love in books when they make me feel, and they make me feel deep emotions, especially sadness for some reason. But if a book can make me cry and like really feel deeply for the characters, that's when I rate a book higher. I read the acknowledgements from the author Annie Hartnett saying that she wanted to write this book about like so many awful things that can happen and make it into the funniest book she could, and she definitely succeeded in that. But I think it became so funny. All the sad and deep things that were happening didn't click or like connect to me in a way. I hope that makes sense. But for example, the reason why PJ has to adopt these two kids is because their parents were a part of a murder-suicide. And that's horrible, but you don't really cry and you don't really like feel anything. It's just being told to you, and then that's kind of it, because it's told again. Like the way it's written and the way it's supposed to be kind of funny. It's kind of like in Friends with Phoebe Buffay, because she's this really funny character, but she says a lot of like traumatic things, and there's just like the laughing audience in the background, and there's nothing like serious about it, if that makes sense, even though what she says is so horrible. And that's kind of what this book is as well. I kind of went into this book hoping that I would get like life lessons and it would be greatly written and I would just really enjoy it, and it would kind of feel like, again, like a Frederick Bachman book where I just want to highlight things and you're like, oh my god, I'm learning so many things about like the world and life. I just didn't really get that. I got like a funny movie, a comedy that you could watch with your family and you could have a great time, but then you don't think about it ever again, really. And it's just in one ear, out the other. It just kind of, I just don't think I will think about this book again afterwards, which is why I don't want to rate it any higher than 3.5, because I still thought the book was good and I would recommend it to people. And I don't want you guys to not read it if you hear this review. Reading is so incredibly subjective, so while I didn't connect to it, doesn't mean that you won't connect to it. And this could be your new favorite book. This book does have a high rating on Goodreads, and it does have some life lessons. It does, like, absolutely. Unfortunately, not a 5-star and not even a 4-star. So, but after that, like 2 days ago, I think, I started my next book, which is As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow. I saw this book on TikTok not that long ago, actually, only a few weeks ago, I think, and I immediately added it to my TBR because people really rave about it, and I was reading Goodreads reviews, and oh my gosh, almost every person gives this book 5 stars and say that it's their favorite book. Even when I was trying to find a Spotify playlist to listen to while I read it, people would literally write it in like the description of the playlist that this is their favorite book of all time. So obviously I had to immediately read it. So I'm 33% through it currently. So I just want to explain what the book is about, and I'm going to put my Kindle down now. Basically, we follow Salama. I'm not entirely sure how to say that, but that's how I pronounce it, Salama. She's 18 years old. She lives in Syria, and there's currently a revolution going on. She was studying to become a pharmacist, but because of this revolution, she basically became a surgeon overnight, like a trauma surgeon. She works in the ER for all the people who gets hurt. They either get shot or bombed or anything horrible like that, and she's learned to sew people up and literally perform surgery to save these people's lives, and she's literally 18 years old. While all this is happening as well, her mom is dead. Her dad and brother is assumed dead, or at least have been impersonated, and she lives with her best friend and also sister-in-law, who is also 7 months pregnant. Before her brother disappeared, Salama promised him to get the sister-in-law out of Syria and get her to Europe so that she can deliver this baby safely, and also just so that they will survive and not get killed. It's absolutely horrible to be reading about these things, but it's also so relevant for the current times with all these different wars. You can easily forget about it just living in your own little bubble in your safe country and nothing affects you fully. So to read this book, you really just get an insight in how horrible it is, and it's definitely very impactful. And no matter how I will feel about this book, like if I like the plot or the characters or whatever, I will definitely be thinking about it, because it just gives you it's such an eye-opener to how it is for all the people who live in these countries that are affected by war. And even though it's not entirely a war that's happening here in this book, it is a revolution, and they're trying to get a free Syria, but people are still getting bombed, and people just live in houses that have no roof or no walls and just holes in them because they've been bombed. And where I'm at right now with the 33% through, there's also a little bit of a romance going on with this guy named Keenan. I'm excited to see where that is going to go, but obviously that's like not the main focus of this story. I assume it's going to be like a subplot. She's still trying to get a boat to leave Syria. So I'm very excited to continue to read the book. I'm not like loving it right now in the 33% through. I'm actually like having to force myself to read, and I don't know if it's just because I'm in a little bit of a slump and it doesn't have anything to do with the book, or if it's because of the book. I don't really know, but I just know that like every day I have to be like, I should read, I need to read because this video needs to go up, but I just don't have any interest in reading, which is really unfortunate. But I will be reading anyways, and hopefully at some point it will get so good that I want to continue, but we'll see. I will keep you guys updated and I will read. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god, I'm gonna cry. Oh my god. This book is so heartbreaking. So sad. It's the next day, I'm in the same spot and I'm wearing the same clothes, but I am I'm in shock. This thing that just happened has happened to me one time before in a book, and I don't even, oh, I'm speechless. What? Oh my god, I'm literally gonna cry. What? Okay, have you read this book? It was chapter 29. I just read chapter 29. I'm now on chapter 30. I'm speechless, but I will continue to read and I will get my jaw off the floor at some point. I finished As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow, so this is my final review of this book, and I don't really know. I mean, I know how to review it, but I also don't. On my Goodreads and also on my Fable, I made my review. Basically, I decided that I don't want to rate this book because while it is fictional, it very well could be a real story, and I don't want to sit here and criticize any of the content in this book or say anything is boring or falling flat or whatever, because again, I know it is fictional and I know that any book really could be a real story, and I still rate those. I just personally feel like it is a little bit different when it's such a sensitive subject as like a war and a revolution and people literally getting bombed and shot at in their own homes. So I just don't want to rate this book. I'm gonna put my Kindle down, but I'm still going to give my overall like review and like thoughts on the book because I didn't like love the book, but I think that's a me problem. I think it's because I was a little bit in a slump, to be honest, and maybe it was the book that put me in the slump. I don't know, and it's obviously not something that I'll ever really know unless I guess I reread it at some point. But I think the story was very impactful and definitely such an eye-opener and a book that I will think about and I would recommend to people to read. This book will definitely definitely make you more empathetic, if you weren't already, towards people who immigrate into another country. And that's especially really relevant in today's age with everything going on over in the US with so many immigrants being deported, because this shows how, at least for these characters in this book, Salama and Kinan, they don't actually in their hearts want to leave Syria, because that's their home, that's where they grew up, it's where their families, a lot of their family members are buried, and they love their country, they feel very strongly about their country, but it is unsafe, and they're doing it for their own survival and for the people that they love, to bring them to safety. And they have a hope and a dream that one day Syria will be safe enough so that they can come back to this place that they call home. And I think it is so, like, such an important message to read this book and to understand that people don't immigrate for fun. Obviously some do. Like, if I were to move to France, let's say, I would, technically speaking, be an immigrant that moved to France, and that would be for no reason about safety. But a lot of immigrants who come, even the people who come to Denmark, come from countries that are filled with war, and they leave because it's unsafe where they are. But the people, some people at least, are like, we need to get them out of here, like, this is our country, and they need to, now I'm just gonna talk for Denmark, but like, they need to learn Danish, they need to eat the Danish food, they need to yada yada yada, whereas like, they're just here trying to survive, trying to create their own, like, their own life, like, they're just literally trying to live. You wouldn't want to be in their home country either, when you could literally walk to the grocery store and be shot by a sniper. That's what happens in this book. It's literally people who are walking outside, and at any point there's a sniper who could literally shoot you, or a bomb that fall on any building. You're never safe, constant fear, there's not enough food, there's not enough medicine, there are not enough doctors in general for all the people who are getting hurt, and it's horrible. And I know that this isn't really necessarily, what I'm saying isn't really a review of the book itself, but I just feel like it's a book you can't really review, because this could have just as easily been a history book. It could have easily just been a real story, an article, whatever, about these characters. So I can't sit here and be like, I didn't like the characters, I didn't like the story, I thought this and this was boring, because I feel very weird and wrong doing that. But I would recommend you to read this book to understand the life of immigrants, and also just the life of what it's like to be in these countries that are filled with so much hate, while the people who live there are still like trying to live and just get by, and they still love their country and they're forced to leave it. I think that's where I'm going to leave this review at. Read this book if you are intrigued and you want to know more. A lot of people are saying this is their favorite book of all time and it's a 5-star read. I'm not gonna say that it is. Like, I know if I would have rated it and it was any normal book, it's not a 5-star, and I didn't like love this book, it wasn't like amazing, but I would still definitely recommend people to read this book and form their own opinions and just get an insight into their life. It was definitely heart-wrenching at moments, and I filmed myself yesterday when I had the biggest shock ever. That was a crazy thing that happened in the book, and I'm gonna start talking about it because I feel like I could go on forever. But I did in fact start a new book, which will be the last book of this video, which is The Names by Florence Knob, I don't really know. This is another book that I have very high expectations for and hope that this could be a 5-star. I am about 20% in, and so far I actually really like it, and I think this potentially could be the best book out of the 3. So very excited about that. But to explain the premise of this book is that we're following this mother, Cora, and she just gave birth to a beautiful baby son, and she has to go and register his name, but she's very conflicted about what to name him because her husband, in his family, there's this tradition that all the guys, like all the sons, are called Gordon, which is what her husband's name is as well, but she doesn't really want that. And this book is per se of the name called The Names, about how much impact a name can have, like what naming someone can have. she has to go and register the name. And it's a really cool concept in this book. So basically it will say it starts in 1987, which is when she's going to register the name. We see 3 different chapters. One chapter where she names her baby Bear, which is what her older daughter Maya wanted to name him if she could choose. Then there's the second chapter, which is what would happen if she named the baby Julian, which is what she wants. And then a third chapter, which is that what if she called him Gordon, like she's supposed to do according to her husband. And then now I've gotten to 7 years later, where again it's going to show 7 years later. I just read the chapter of if she called him Bear, and now I've made it to Julian. And I think that's a really cool concept. And I actually thought it was going to tell like the whole storyline of like one name and then the whole storyline of another, but I actually really like that it's in bites, because it also keeps it interesting, because it's, while it's the same plot overall the book, the story changes literally like every chapter, because then it's Bear and then it's Julian and then it's Gordon and then it starts over, but 7 years later. And it's going to continue for I don't know how long into the future, but many chapters, because that's how the whole book is set up. It's divided into these 3 lives that this child could have, and not just the child, but also how different the life is for the sister and for the mother and the father, and just like everything changes just because of the name change. And I think it's so interesting, because you might not think sometimes that a life could be changed with just your name, but then I thought about it, like every interaction you've had your whole life that have been about your name, like every time you've presented it, every time you've had any sort of conversation about it, would be alternated. It would be different. And especially in this book, because Cora's husband Gordon is an abusive husband, so changing the name to something that he is not approving changes the whole storyline if she were to go with the name that her husband wants, or the other 2 names, and even those 2 names still have a different outcome. Very interesting concept, definitely. And I like the writing. I actually want to read you a quote that I thought was really impactful, or like beautiful. This is a quote that really shows what it's like to live with an abuser. It says, "She lives trying not to set a match to Gordon's anger, but still she spills petrol about her, trimming it over shoes she has forgotten to polish, sloshing it across a particular shirt not washed in time. She races from thing to thing, tending to whatever might spark, but it's always something behind her, just out of sight, that she hadn't thought of." I think that's such a great writing, and like to explain it with the petrol, about how no matter what she does, there will always be something that she didn't do correctly for him to get mad of, because you can never satisfy someone like that. They'll always find something that bothers them. So yeah, overall I'm really enjoying it so far, but I am only 20% in. But I'm only 20% in, so obviously a lot could change, but I'm very excited, and I will continue to read and obviously keep you guys updated as I read it. If you can see that stain, just ignore it. But I wanted to talk about the names because I'm about 60% through, so I just wanted to give my halfway thoughts before I eventually finish it. I really like this book, and it could potentially be a 5-star read, which would be crazy. I've only had one 5-star read this year so far, and that was Atmosphere, which I read in my "This video ends when I find a 5-star read." I have not read a 5-star since then, and this is my 30th book this year. Here's to hoping that this could be a 5-star. I really am enjoying seeing the timelines. So the part I'm at right now is that the son, he is now 28 years old. So we saw him at 7, at 14, 21, and now 28. I think this is the second to last timeline. I think after that it's going to jump 7 years again and he'll be 35, and I'm pretty sure that that's the last, like the last chapters. So that means I have about 6 chapters left and then the epilogue. But I think the book is so interesting because of the fact that like every chapter you change the story, and it's just so insane to see how much everything can change, like how different their lives are, like even just their jobs, their interests, like anything like that, the familial relationship between them, how close they are, changes just because of the name. I feel like the biggest reason why so much changes is from those first 3 chapters of seeing Cora, the mother, tell her husband Gordon what she named the baby, and it's his reaction to that in those 3 like timelines that kind of set the trajectory for the rest of their lives for all of the characters in this story. Even the grandmother, who isn't even in all chapters, like in all storylines, it affects people, and it's so like mind-blowing because it does make sense, even though you can think like, oh, now you're gonna stress like naming your own child, like knowing can change so much. But obviously this is also specific circumstances. If you have an actual good boyfriend or husband, he would not react either of the ways that he does in this book. It's because the husband is abusive, and so his reaction is literally what changes their whole like outcome or life. And then you can think that the reaction should be the same for the 2 names that he didn't want, but they're not, because the way she tells it and the reason behind the name and all that, like there's just like different things that changes it. But I am excited to see in the last 3 chapters, when I get to them in 7 years again, if there's going to be anything that will be inevitable, like something that will happen in all 3 storylines, because so far they're all different in like literally no matter what aspect of his life. There are characters that will appear in more than one storyline, but it will still be different, and it's so crazy. And I really like the writing in this book as well. I know I read a quote earlier as well, and I've highlighted multiple things. I think it has such good quotes, and I think that the author did a phenomenal job portraying this storyline, because while it's about how much your life can change just by one small detail like your name, it's also about, I mean, living in an abusive household for Cora, what that does to her to be the spouse of an abuser, but also for the children, because in this story the father is not really abusive towards either of the kids, just extremely abusive towards their mother, but he kind of does it in secret so that the children won't really know. So the story also tells like how it affects the children, things that their dad has done and the things that people know about them, how that affects them, being scared to do something because you're scared that you're going to turn into him, or other aspects of that as well. Very, very interesting story. And it just flies by so quick because, again, like every chapter it's new, and then even when you go back to a storyline that you've already been in, go 7 years into the future again, so you're still like learning a lot of new things that have happened since he was 14 to 21. But I just want to read one quote before I sign off here. She pauses because it feels too much to explain how his past has affected him, to admit that her impression is that he experiences life in grayscale rather than allowing himself to become immersed in all its colors, that there's a flatness about him. I really love the writing in this. It's exactly what I wanted. When I say I want good writing, this is what I mean. Like, I want writing where I feel like I want to highlight and I feel immersed in a quote, can, like, I read a sentence and I'm like, oh, that was so like deep and that was so like well written and described. That's exactly what I want. And I don't know if this will be a 5-star because I've said it many times, but a 5-star is a feeling. So it depends on how I feel when I finish it. But tomorrow I have like an hour-and-a-half train ride to Copenhagen because I'm going to an Alex Warren concert. So I'll definitely be reading on the train, and if I don't finish it by that train ride, I have another train ride home on Friday. So plenty of time to finish this book. I am very excited to see where it ends, and I'm really excited to see the epilogue. I wonder if the epilogue is gonna go back to 1987 and we're gonna know maybe what she chooses for the actual name, if she just like reflects and we don't actually get to know what she will end up calling the baby. But I don't know. Nonetheless, having a phenomenal time. I'm gonna go to the gym now with my friends, and then I will probably read tonight because I've missed this feeling. This is the feeling I didn't have with the last two, like being like wanting to read and like being excited to read. There's no better feeling. But I will stop yapping now and I will read later, and obviously we'll talk about this book whenever I finish it. Hello guys, I am back from Copenhagen and I finished the book while I was sitting at a cafe, and there's actually a book cafe. I've seen it online and I really wanted to visit it while I was in Copenhagen, and I just had a little burger with some potatoes at the side, and then I just sat and read my book, and I only had like 15% or so left of it, if not even less. I think it was like 1.5 chapter and the epilogue. So I finished the names, and guys, I am so excited to say that I have found my second 5-star read of this year, and that reading these anticipated books, while 2 of them were a little bit of a letdown, the last one won. And it was so funny because yesterday while I was with my friend before the concert, we were talking about books and like talking about what books we'd read recently, and I said I was reading this book, and as soon as I said the names, she was like, oh, shut up, I just downloaded that book last night. She hasn't started it yet, but she's going to read it. How perfect, literally, that I was reading it and she just downloaded it and we hadn't even talked about it. This was a breath of fresh air. It was exactly what I wanted and have been looking for in my many past reads. It was exactly what I wanted. I loved it so much. I can't even like begin to explain. I mean, obviously I can, but this book completely portrays so many different things, and it is the epitome of the butterfly effect or the domino effect or whatever you want to call it. How any simple change in your life can cause a full-on like butterfly effect, and everything else can change. And it also portrays how no life is perfect, because while we have these 3 lives, none of them are perfect for any of the characters. There are good and bad in every single one of them. You can have a favorite, and I have a favorite that I think would maybe be the one I think is better than maybe some of the others. But each one has some negativity that you would think, oh, I wouldn't choose this one because this happens, and I wouldn't choose this one because this happens, and I wouldn't choose that one because that happens. But then you forget about all the positive that happened in each of these storylines, because so much positivity happened as well, and so much growth for each of the characters. It was just phenomenal. I thought it was just so good, so well written and well rounded, and just really made sense for the story. And then I think it was just so unique, because obviously there are books out there that are about the butterfly effect, but I think it was so unique in the fact like about the names and what it would be like if you named your child 3 different names, and what you imagine or picture that life to like look like. And obviously you can't predict anything, but I just think this was such a realistic story. It also portrays domestic violence, which I've talked about, like how the mother, Cora, has an abusive husband, which is also the reason why there are these like different names. The whole like reasoning for the story in the first place is that he's abusive, and this story in these 3 timelines encapsulates how different a life can go when it comes to having an abusive spouse. Like different outcomes when you are a victim of domestic violence or a survivor of domestic violence. In each of these storylines, it is different, the outcome of what happens to Cora, and how that like fundamentally changes not just her life but the children's lives, in what capacity the father is involved, and in what ways their lives are controlled by this literal monster. Like, he is horrible. And I just think that the author did such a great job, even though I have not experienced domestic violence and I don't know the actual situation. This is exactly what I would imagine it and picture it as. The gaslighting and being so hard to leave and just all those things I just really liked, even though I know the story is not necessarily even about that, because it is about the names and what can change. but I feel like the domestic violence is also such a big plot point in this book. So nonetheless, again, 5 stars. I would absolutely recommend this to people if you like literary fiction. And with reading that book, I finished this video. Those were the 3 books that I was gonna read for this video, the anticipated books that I've been wanting to read for a little while, that have been on my TBR, that I had high hopes for, and thankfully the last one panned out to be 5 stars. If you're watching this video the day it comes out, this is me a few hours before it came out, because it's about 5 p.m, 5:30 right now, my time, and it's supposed to go up as soon as possible. Basically, I'm gonna go straight and edit it. I have edited everything you have seen up until before I went to Copenhagen. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you got some new book recommendations, and I will hopefully see you guys in my next video. Bye!